Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I am your hostess for the evening, and with me, as always, we have Brian and Henno. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Yo.
I'm Brian.
I'm Brian. Better spell it right.
Yep, that's right.
We took the week off last week, so we apologize if you missed us, because we know we missed you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad we're back.
Yeah, me too.
Just need a little TLC time, I think.
Yeah, it felt weird, because I mean, part of the reason was on me, or my part of the blame, however you want to word this, because I completely forgot it was Wednesday, and I went with Tony up to, there's a brewery like right up the street from me, and we were going to go up there and just kind of sit, and because they have a little outdoor area, we were going to go sit out there, and we got up there, and there was a couple people out there, but not too many, and like about 10 minutes after we got there, the place completely cleared out. It was only us and the owners there for most of the night, which I felt bad. Like, we even went in at one point to get another beer, and we were like, hey, are we keeping you guys? Like, because like, if there's any chance y'all would close early, we can just grab like a growler and take off, like we just sit on my porch or something, like rather than have them burn all their lights and everything. And the guy goes, oh, no, we're going to be open no matter what. So I was like, okay. And I told him, I said, well, I said, I owned my own business, so I understand that, sometimes you might be like, hey, we're not getting any business, like, we're going to go ahead and shut the doors because we're just burning money right now. But it was funny because right after that, like, two guys came in, and then a guy came in to get some growlers filled, and then they were getting, like, various people coming in just filling growlers. So I was like, okay, that's probably why he's not closing, because they probably get this fairly regularly, So I was like, okay, well, it felt better too, because I'm like, I want them to stay open. So we just sat outside, and then there was a certain point in the night when I'm like, today's Wednesday, isn't it? And Tony goes, yeah, why? And I'm like, oh, and I looked, and it's like 9:30. And or around then, I think, is when I texted you guys, because I was kind of like, whoopsies or something. So, actually, no, that might not have been Wednesday. I don't remember. I can't remember if I texted you. Was it? Okay, couldn't remember if I texted you guys or not. But yeah, I completely thought it was Tuesday for some reason. And, but it was really nice to go do that, because that's the first time I've done that since quarantine started. But it was also weird because I kept looking around, because I really felt like we were doing something wrong. Like it felt so strange to be in public again. Because I haven't done that really at all. As far as, like, I haven't been in a restaurant other than I was in at one Wendy's with my brother, and we ate, and then we're gone, like, as soon as we were done, And again, we lucked out. There was only like one or two other people in the whole place, so it wasn't too bad, but it still felt so strange. But we were, did all the things you're supposed to do, like while we were drinking, we obviously didn't have a mask on, but then while, when we didn't, we pull the masks up, and when we go inside, you have them on and all that kind of stuff. So it was, just whatever you got to do. And we got to, there was a super nice dog that, talked to us on our way out. That's because the place is pet friendly. So this guy brought in his dog when he came in to get, he was sitting at the bar and just had a couple, he was tasting some of the new beers, and then just got some stuff filled and left, but, or was going to leave. But then while he was there, that dog was so well behaved though. Like as soon as it saw me and Tony, the dog's kind of like, hey, like people. And he was like, and the guy just goes, eh, and the dog laid right back down.
That's awesome.
He didn't even raise his voice or anything. It was just, eh, and the dog right back down. Then he, but he had treats with him, and he, gave the dog a treat, and, or, the dog was more than happy with that. But, I have a feeling that we could have easily, I think the dog really just wanted to make more friends. That's all it was, not at all aggressive. You could just tell by the look on the dog's face. It was just excitement that it was people, like, ooh, 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 ooh. So, but yeah, that, like I said, that felt so weird doing that, even afterwards. I was just like, God, that felt so strange, and it felt so nice to do that again. It's still not something I'm going to be doing all the time, but it was just a nice change of things because, right now the scenery's pretty much the same every day. So it was nice to have a bit of a change there and, hang out with Tony, which we haven't, we've hung out twice, I think, since quarantine started. So it was nice to actually do that, So, yeah, there was that, and trying to think what else happened this week. Not much else. It was just pretty much, just typical stuff. It felt very weird not doing this podcast, for a week. This isn't the first time where we've skipped a week. We've had a couple of times where that's happened, but it always feels so strange.
It does. Yeah.
Because it always feels like, wasn't there something we were supposed to, like that kind of thing. Like I'm forgetting something. And even while I was doing the stuff for Salty Language Monday night, I'm like, did I post crazy? Like it was just like click because the way everything is in my computer, since I do both on the same computer, is that when I go to save stuff from Crazy Life or log in to post it, it's always with the Crazy Life's stuff still popping up because it's the most it's the most recent. And then when I do this show, Salty Language pops up because it's the most recent. So it was strange that when I logged in or was going to do this stuff for Salty Language, and Salty Language popped up, and I'm like, and then it hit, like I said, it hit me. I'm like, did I do? Oh yeah, right. We didn't do a show this week. Like, it was, kind of messing with my routine a little bit there. But yeah, so it was, it was a decent week overall. Nothing big other than, like I said, going and hanging out that one day. It was pretty much it. I did see a very brazen woman last night. I went to a store with my brother, and there was this like 20-ish-year-old woman walking around, and an older woman walked up to her and grabbed the sides of her mask and pulled it up because the girl had her mask down below her like top lip.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, whoa, because I'm like, that's too far. Like, I'm pro-mask. It's not hidden at all. I'm all about, let's do what the science tells us to do at the moment and whatever. But I certainly wouldn't go up and lay my hands upon, even though she didn't touch her, that's part of you. That's part of your person.
Property.
Yeah, like, you don't, that's a line you don't cross there. That's too far. And she could have just said, hey, can you pull your mask up? And she never even approached it that way. She just straight went, aggressive and just pulled it up. And then she looked at her and was like, wear this right. And I was like, oh my. Like,
damn.
Yeah. I was like, clearly this is a woman who's been dealing.
I have spoken.
Yeah. Well, and she must be someone who's dealt with this before. Like, she's just tired of people wearing it. Because it's very prevalent around here anyway. Like, tons of people around here are wearing their masks below their nose or way down. I even saw people at the grocery store yesterday. This woman and her daughter walked in, and as soon as they got past the security guard, they took their masks off. Like, the second they did.
Wow.
And I'm just standing there, and I'm like, huh. And then I saw, I saw someone standing next to the cop and pointing toward them. So I was like, okay, somebody saw it and was like, hey, they gotta,
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him walking over that way. I didn't stick around to see what happened, but I was like, all right, it's going to happen, but it's like, like I said, I'm not going to go up and yell at somebody or whatever. It frustrates me. I hate it. I see it all the time. I want to go up and do that. Like, if I thought I could get away with it, I would do the same thing that woman did. I would. I'd go up and pull the mask up and be like, quit being stupid. But, I'm not going to, because it's like I said, that's a step too far.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, at least ask the person, like, because I was standing there, like, I stood there for a second watching it because I'm like, this is going to be a viral video in a second.
Exactly.
Like, because this younger woman is going to probably flip out on this other woman. She didn't even say, I think she was in shock,
Probably.
Like,
Probably was.
She was just like,
what do I do?
But I will say this, I saw her later walking around the store, and she still had the thing up. Now, my guess is, and this was something I had kind of thought about, is a lot of us, especially I don't know about Androids, but iPhones, the newer iPhones, all use facial recognition. Now, you can turn it off, but most people don't, because it's so, once you're hooked on it, it's super easy. You just look at your phone and it's unlocked, basically. And now with masks, it doesn't work. You have to still input a code or whatever. So I think there's an element of people walking around that pull their masks down so they can look at their phone.
Could be.
Because I've seen it. And I'm sitting there going, it's interesting how facial recognition on the phone made it easier to unlock the phone faster. But at the same time, like right now, it set us up potentially for something that's detrimental, potentially. It's just interesting how you never would have saw this coming. kind of a thing. Although it does make me wonder, like, do people over in like China where wearing masks is fairly common because of the smog and such? I wonder if they don't use facial recognition.
They may not. I mean, you're
'Cause
right.
they would
because
have
of
to pull the
the
mask
way
down.
everything's set up.
Yeah. I kind of wonder about that now. I kind of, it took me down a road that had nothing to do with coronavirus. It just, it kind of did. But, I was just kind of like, it makes me wonder these different things, because you would think that would be a market sample that would have a voice that would be like, hey, facial recognition stinks for us. Thumbprints are much better. Because we can just keep, we can use our thumb or finger or whatever to open the phone, so I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, that was about it for me. I, shockingly didn't see fisticuffs, even though I really thought that that was a scenario that if there was going to be, that was certainly going to, setting it up.
It was going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Because the first thing I did was like, where is there a security guard around here in case things go sideways here? Because I'm not getting in the middle of it. But I will certainly go be like, hey, there's something's going down over there. You might want to go have a look at.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. Well, I've been pretty much, standard, same old, with all the craziness going on outside. Just me tucked away in my own little happy home. Not a whole bunch, but I think I mentioned the last time we talked that I may have mentioned, I can't remember if I did or not, but I know we've gone down this path before, but we're going down the path again. I did quit my meds, and I'm just all my bipolar meds. I've stopped them, and I'm actually doing really, really well. I am feeling the difference for sure. I'm definitely feeling all the emotions again, which is different than it was before, but I'm managing really well. I've got all, everybody knows about it. All my support system is aware of what's going on, what the warning signs, things to watch for. I'm aware of things to watch for and stuff. But I wanted to do it during this time when things were real calm and isolated, so that I could really get comfortable before going back into, like the workplace and things like that. So, yeah, so far so good. Things are going really well. So that's the one thing. My weight loss is still doing really well. I'm down 18 pounds now.
Nice.
So moving towards my goals, which is always a good thing, and feeling good about it. I really haven't been feeling a lot of cravings, and I've slowly started adding back things. I did very low carb and no sugar, no refined sugars is the diet I'm doing right now. And 1,500 calories or less. I'm aiming for like around 13 to 15, somewhere in that ballpark. I just started adding back in the last week or so some flour. So I did a thin crust pizza with ranch sauce instead of the pizza sauce, and cheese and toppings and things. So it was minimal on the carbs, still under my daily allotment, but it's starting to introduce flour and some other, gluten and stuff back into my diet. As well as this month, for the month of September, month of August, I went alcohol free. The month of September, I'm doing 30 days of bourbon. So in the month of October, we may be doing dry again.
Well, this is recovery month, September.
Is it?
Yes.
Yep.
So
Well,
it's just a good month to slam the bourbon.
Right.
It's also Bourbon Heritage Month, which is very ironic that they both fall in the same month. But
Well,
that's
realistically,
why they chose
I don't-
September.
I was going to say, I don't think most of the month things look to see what else is scheduled that month,
Probably not.
Yeah.
But 30 Days of Bourbon basically is you taste test a different bourbon every day in the month of September. And you keep track of it and you post it, and then there's giveaways and different things that happen. But the goal is to introduce people to different types of different bourbons that you normally wouldn't be taste testing, and also encourage socializing by going out to clubs or going out to whiskey bars, going to, talking with people and trading and trying to encourage that type of behavior. Now, I personally am only doing a 2-ounce pour every night, so I'm not, kicking back every night with a whole bunch, but so I'm very specific because of the diet, as well as whiskey, bourbon. That's a lot of bourbon when you're doing bourbon every single night for a month. So I'm doing slow and steady. But if you want to follow that, if you follow my account on Twitter, you'll see my daily updates. It talks every day. I post a picture of the bourbon I'm drinking that night. So, so I'm doing that too, and it seems to be not affecting the diet negatively, which is a good thing. I was really cautious of that. But everything in moderation, as we've talked about many times on the show. Other than that, my mom came to visit, and she stayed with me, which was a nice visit. Pretty awesome. She's moving up here in the not too distant future, so hopefully as soon as her home down there in Florida sells. So that'll be great having her here near me, and another support system close by, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. Nice.
I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, that's about it. And then I said my anxiety and my, just the emotions and stuff have been really pretty stable. Surprisingly stable, knock on everything. But yeah, I've been feeling really well and really good about everything. I'm curious to see how things are going to go this Saturday. My husband that I need to get out of the house, so he's going to plan something for Saturday. So I'm curious to see what he comes up with and what we end up doing. I'm curious to see how that goes. Because other than going to the grocery store and the little bit I was out with my mom, I've pretty much just been a homebody.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So that's what I've been up to. How about you, Hanno?
Well, if those 2 ounces of bourbon get to you, you can go to recoverymonth.gov and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is
you can check
part
them.
of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And right now they are doing all sorts of webinars and various, if you go to recoverymonth.gov, you can see all the different events they have, virtual events they have planned for September. And you can also just go on any of your social media accounts to @RecoveryMonth, which is it's a government organization. So it's always going to be a .gov or it'll all be Recovery Month. So yeah. And if there's for example, in my hood, we have they call it second chance living, which is just nice way to say halfway house.
Okay, yeah. I was going to ask that. I was like, because I had heard, was it like a year or so ago roughly, that halfway house wasn't really being used anymore because it's kind of got a negative connotation. So they were rebranding,
really
if you will.
Yeah. So it's their name too. It's Men's Second Chance Living.
Oh, okay.
And it's a nice house that they bought in town and helping. And it's only men transition into, back to regular life after coming out of either treatment or jail or whatever it is. And so they're doing a special of if you go to a local restaurant, that kind of a thing. So it's worth looking to see what your local recovery community has to offer. They might have some way that you too can contribute to Recovery Month.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Always a good thing.
I've been continuing to do my Monday meetings, and it's been so good. Oh, it's so funny how just me meeting with another alcoholic is always good for me. Well, and doing work on
Yeah.
not being an
Right.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
There was like I think it was last week, or it was just I just had a day, and I was heading down, and I knew that the minute I knew that I'd feel better again, and I did. It's just again another affirmation for me that when I'm of service, I get out of my own head and get out of my own issues, and so it's been really fun, and it's nice. It's also been good in that it's a priority, something that that this is a commitment, and I like calling it that way because it is a commitment, and it has its rewards. I always take the Thursday off before 3-day weekends that are on Mondays because I work on Sunday that way I can cover for everybody on the holiday. And so I had various things I was looking forward to doing around the house, and on Thursday night ended up with tummy issues that went into Friday morning, of course. And then I did get some things done. And then Saturday, I pulled my back.
Nice.
Which is awesome when you've got tummy issues and you need to take painkillers that tend to create tummy issues.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's been gnarly. And so Sunday I went to work, and I just pretty much had an ice pack on all day long. And luckily it was great. It was my Sunday because I don't have to do anything. And I had one project to do. It's something I don't get to do very often at my job now because we typically call electricians to do electrical work, but every once in a while we'll jump in and do one ourselves. And we actually have plaster instead of, it's still drywall, but they just did a plaster coating on it, and it's not easy to fix. So it's not like one of these things where it's like, oh, oops, cut the hole in the wrong place. I'll just fix the drywall.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. And so we had one of our owners who is also going to be our new one of our board members wanted to have some lights installed to shine on this beautiful little statue they had. And it had been a long time since I did this, but it felt so good to go in and cut holes in walls and nail them and get the switch in and get the lights in and find where the electricity is and not screw up my back anymore.
Yeah.
And walk away. There's something about slamming a saw into a wall that it's not going to be, if you screw this up, it's not going to be an easy fix. So it just felt good. I needed one of those little wins. I've actually been I really still feel like I'm just nailing it at work. Not going out of my way to be like crazy. I'm still being relaxed, and I feel like there's balance in my productivity at work, which is really good for me. My relationship with my boss is great, and on Monday I get to have my meeting with the board committee about what's going to happen next year. So my goal I have a list of things, but I want to stay out of the outcome, stay out of control. And this actually is going to kind of tie in with our topic for tonight. And to rather than go in with, and Brian, you and we share about this with therapists, is rather than going in with an agenda, is to go in and let things happen. It's not to say that I'm not going to be prepared.
Right.
But I'm not directing this conversation. They are. And my ultimate goal out of all of it is to be, basically to be of service. This is where I can be useful. I'd rather present myself as the type of person that wants to work towards the solution than wants to just dwell on the problems. However, with that said, I'm not going to slack off on the truth. I just don't need to. It doesn't need to be exaggerated. It doesn't need to be piling on. It can be brief. It can be honest, and we can move forward from it.
Right. And like you said,
so-
that's key. The concept of walking in, going, they're going to drive the conversation, not me. Like,
Yes.
I'm going to go
Not me.
contribute and answer. Similar to like if you were walking into like a deposition or something. Like, you aren't the one driving. You just answer. You keep things moving. You do what you need to do. But you don't need to, like you said, you don't need to over-elaborate. You don't need to push a big agenda necessarily, you know, all this kind of stuff. So it's, I think that's a much better way of approaching it so that it won't be as stressful if things don't go the way you want them to. I'm air quoting that, you know, like, whereas if you were trying to, you know, like if you, like you said, if you walked in and you were like, well, I'm going to make sure that A, B, C,
Yeah.
excuse me, happens, you know, and
And
then
none
it
of it
doesn't.
happens.
Yeah.
And also, if I should be able to get my points across in a concise manner
Right.
without having, and if I can't, then my point isn't worth making, really. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So, and how it's going to tie into the topic tonight is about this idea of control, of resisting using control, because this is a great topic. It's on Psychology Today. It is, who presented this? Melody Stanford Martin, and I don't think she's got any. What's her? Usually they give you something about who they are. Let's see, a social ethicist, communications expert, author of Brave Talk: Building Resilient Relationships in the Face of Conflict. So she has a lot of conflict resolution training. And it's agree to disagree is not an end, it's a beginning. That made me instantly go, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because how many times have we had, well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, it's almost always an ending.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like, all right, we're done.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what she's saying is, it is in this space of sheer impasse that I ask you to linger, because disagreement is the beginning.
Yeah.
What if, instead of agree to disagree is the end of a conversation, if it was the beginning of the conversation? What if the point of the conversation is not to agree, but to have a conversation? What would happen if, instead of trying to change or control each other, we focus on seeing and understanding each other? And so in her books, and in her book and courses, she coaches people facing difficult conversations and gives them a few tips. Is 1, resist using control. 2, embrace disagreement. And 3, focus on relationship and community building. In other words, she recommends agreeing to disagree before the conversation starts. And like using this quote, yes, I will talk about this difficult subject with you, but how about we decide beforehand not to try to change each other's minds?
That's
So,
going to
why
be the
is-
hardest thing for people, you know.
It is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. It's so hard, especially nowadays where so many opinions have become fact in people's minds. You know, and it's so difficult when you're talking with someone who, to them, they're saying the sky is blue and the grass is green. And they're really having a hard time accepting the fact that what they're sharing is their opinion based upon their facts, or, you know, their ideas that they have accumulated and stuff. And it's amazing how we're just getting so polarized that it's so difficult just to have a normal conversation around things, to kind of suspend that feeling of the sky is blue, the grass is green. All right, we'll have this discussion that the grass is blue and the sky is green, even though I understand that's not, in my world, that's not the way it is. I'm willing to sit down and have this discussion with you anyways. That's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if what to me right off the bat is it's asking to talk about it from the standpoint of your thoughts, feelings, and opinions
Yeah.
versus just arguing about facts that we've heard or statements.
Well, and I think we've also reached a place, a lot of people in their concept of how discourse or a conversation is supposed to go, is that when you're talking, let's say, politics or whatever else, right, that your only goal is to change the other person's mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many people, that's it. Like, so they go, well, I'm not going to change your mind. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Or you're not going to change my mind, and walk away. Yeah. And I learned a long time ago, one of my favorite things that happened when I was in school was the one instructor I had. We had to argue the con side to something that we were pro, basically.
Yep.
We had to, and we had to write a paper on it and then actually have a debate with someone else doing the same thing. It was very weird. It takes you very much out of your comfort zone. But in the end, what happens is you find out that you at least can understand a little better why somebody is coming at you from the other perspective. It doesn't mean that my mind was changed. It just means that I was like, okay, I can see now why they're so dug in on this type of a thing. And, don't get me wrong, it's not going to work every time, but I do think there is something to that. And even with the stuff now, if you're a liberal, read some of the, conservative sites to see how they approach things, what mindset they're in, and vice versa, because at least, also, in fairness, it'll make you a better debater. Because if you know that what they're coming at you from, you can shoot holes in their logic. It makes you a better debater. Anyway, but if you're trying to just win, it can give you better ammo to win. But in the end, this goal should be to try to understand each other better. We can, at the end of the day, we can have two people have a conversation, never agree on what they're talking about, but at the end, still be civil to one another. And still understand, hey, we didn't change any minds here, but at least I have a better understanding of you and where you're coming from and why you're saying the things you're saying. And that makes for just a better place for everybody rather than, A or B and that's it. There's no gray area. There's nothing else. And that isn't how the world works. Most of us in most things function in gray area, not absolutes. So, this kind of thing allows you to at least maybe step into the gray area and understand where somebody else may be coming from. Or if you're in a position that you need to compromise, like at work, with a significant other, blah, 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 that I think this puts you in a better place to have a conversation where a resolution actually might be reached in the end. Versus just I'm right, there's a line in the sand. You either come over here with me or you're wrong. Mm-hmm. That's not going to get anybody anywhere.
So the today at my work, there was something that we had a disagreement on, and what I've noticed over the last couple of weeks is when I disagree with my general manager, he just gives up, and it's not out of any sort of an agreement. It's literally he just doesn't want to have the conversation.
Yeah,
and the first point she brings up here in this article is that disagreement is healthy.
Yeah.
Is that it's not a stable or free society unless we have some disagreement. Mm-hmm. And in order for ideas to be strong, they need to be challenged. And so and when someone does take time to disagree with us in a respectful way, we should welcome it as a gift and an opportunity to sharpen each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it also gives you an opportunity to make sure that you're not like we can become complacent and sloppy over time too, like with whatever a policy, like a work policy, to where there's some policy. Well, maybe over time things shift a little bit to where that policy doesn't work as well. Well, if nobody ever challenges it, I mean,
if two people are making policy, maybe those two people are wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why aren't you talking to a third person?
Yep.
And so then what they do is they apply that policy to everything, and that's what happened today. It was a policy that I personally was already being applied wrong, and it finally was brought into the realm of something that I was working on, and I just sat. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" I said, "How is that different from this?" And it was funny. It was instead of it, he acted like he was threatened by it, and so that means to me, he didn't want to hear why I felt differently about it.
Yeah.
He just wanted the conversation to end.
Right.
And so that goes against this idea of hashing out ideas.
Yeah.
And so the second tip is, and this is something you already mentioned, is when we debate to win, winning becomes a distracting goal.
Mm-hmm.
So you're no longer learning anything. You're focusing on the gotcha moments. And you're focusing on, you're not debating in a formal setting.
Right.
So, it's funny that I was actually talking to my friend Neil about this over the weekend because we're both very guilty of this. And especially like when someone does use like absolutes, it's so easy to just instantly focus on that. When someone says, oh, well, and this happens a lot in relationships. You never never really?
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now are we talking about the dishes or are we talking about the never?
Right.
Now we're talking about the never. So that means I'm trying to win rather than get back to be on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, debate has its place, but it can be beneficial to set it aside, in order for the bigger picture.
Yeah. Well, especially the concept of winning. Jen's mentioned it before on here. Like, when you have a couple, like when you're in an argument, it's like, we're on the same team. Like, what are we, winning is something that means both of us walk away with something. Like anything short of that is not a win. Essentially, because one person has to completely walk away with a loss. Like, that's not, when you're a team, everybody wins or everybody loses. That's how team works. In baseball, if one player goes out and a pitcher goes out and throws a no-hitter, but they still lose, the team loses. It doesn't matter that he threw a no-hitter. They still lost. He has an L next to his name in the stat book. It doesn't go, great performance, but the team couldn't produce any runs, And
if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're destined to repeat them.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that whenever you are in a disagreement with someone, if you don't learn anything from it, you've just wasted your time. I mean, there is no point to it. You're just, spewing hot air, wasting your time talking to a wall. Even if they don't learn something from it, if you can learn something from it, at least you've gained. You've moved forward. There's steps being taken. You're not just spinning your wheels. Yeah. So I highly recommend. That's why it's so important we have active listening and that you really try to take these moments and really analyze after the fact and say, okay, what's my takeaway from this? What can I learn from this? So that A, it either doesn't happen again, or B, when it does happen again, it's a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our third tip is it being important to challenge cultures of control. And when we attempt to change someone's mind and they resist, it's incredibly tempting to exert control and dominance. And control not only creates imbalances of power, but it fosters frustration and resentment, which is a phenomenon known as reactance. And that can erode trust. And it is true. It says such attempts are fundamentally unjust. Even if we think our ideas are righteous and flawless, employing control or manipulation dampens our cause, muddles our communication, hurts chances we might have had at fair persuasion. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Is the idea of, there is an opportunity to persuade somebody, but if we allow these other elements to come into it, like the desire to win and the desire to control the conversation, that we lose that opportunity at persuasion. And that's another thing I'm definitely guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
Changing our minds is hard and uncomfortable. According to cognitive dissonance theory, most of us experience tension and frustration when we are presented with new information that often no effect of other beliefs we hold that may also be challenged. Even our relationships can be challenged when we change our minds. As we grapple with the dissonance of holding conflicting ideas at once, having someone attempt to control or force us into agreement may exacerbate that tension. This is interesting. So someone experiencing that cognitive dissonance may be more likely to reject new information instead of grapple with it to its full and reasonable extent. So,
well, I think that makes tons of sense, though,
isn't that
right?
interesting?
Because if I come at you with something that is counter to what you feel is a fundamental type of thing, most people don't immediately go, you've given me something to think about. Most people go, I feel attacked and I must respond in kind. And, so you don't even give yourself a chance to generally process it a lot of times, especially if it ends up being one of your core type things.
And especially if the nature of it is presented to you in a way that can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So already the concept doesn't stand true, and so there's already resistance there.
Yep.
And then on top of that, if you're feeling forced into it, that resistance just multiplies.
Yeah.
And it becomes worse and worse and worse. And then at that point, then there's a complete rejection.
Yeah.
Whereas if you could massage the process and have a discussion, again, trying not to win, acknowledging that you see things differently, trying not to control the conversation, but just have an exchange of ideas, there might be some persuasion in there. Then I think I probably see that more than anything else is just that complete shutoff. And that's where we get this agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And I think it has more to do with not the topic. I think it has a lot to do with how it's being discussed.
Yeah. I've always hated the agree to disagree thing anyway, because first of all, I see it as dismissive. And second of all, it means, like you were just saying, it means that you're telling me we can't have a conversation. Like, that bothers me, and it's, part of that obviously was control issues, because I don't, I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me, but, I understand why people use it, and there's times where I totally get it. Like, if you just have two people yelling at each other and there is not going to be an actual conversation had, I can see the benefits of just going, well, let's just agree to disagree and maybe moving past it, or just changing the topic. But in a normal kind of setting, it bothers me to where it's basically like all that person is doing to me when they go agree to disagree is they might as well just put their fingers in their ears and go, nah, 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 nah. That's basically the way I see it, And like I said, I feel very dismissed. Like, you don't care what my feelings are at this point. That bothers me greatly. So like I said, I've never been one to really like the whole agree to disagree. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I rarely ever use it because I don't like it. I would rather us have the conversation, But like I said, I do understand that there are times where there's not going to be a conversation. You're just going to have two people yelling at each other, or not even yelling, but they're just not interested in listening. They're only interested in talking.
Or like their next point is they're both sides are interested in converting.
Yes, exactly.
And if your focus is converting, there's no space for learning.
Right.
And so if you are walking into a room where you know you're allowed to disagree and will be treated with respect, you'll be less defensive,
Right.
and you'll be more likely to learn what other people think. And that is what I notice is not happening
Yeah.
in a lot of my conversations. And when it does happen, it's a real standout. And I've actually had I had one with a complete stranger where he actually opened himself up to like, well, okay, I hear what you're saying, and if that's true, then and then went on to another part, and I said, I agree with you. Then I agreed with the response that because he was willing to listen to what I had to say.
Yeah.
And so when he had a bit of a critique at the end of it, I went, hey, I can't argue with that critique.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously true. And it was the first time that I actually had an exchange where rather than an assumption of disbelief in what the other person's going to say, we came in with this idea of like, okay, and also right at the beginning, he agreed with a concept, and that opened a huge door. That meant that we were allowed to disagree, but it was open to the conversation that was occur next.
Right. Yeah, because again, you're not talking in absolutes when you're talking. He was willing to pull a nuance and like, okay, you made 3 points. I agree with one of them, but the other two I don't agree with. Then you go, hey, I feel right, and then you go, I feel heard. Now you're willing to also listen. Like you're in a more. You don't feel as though you've been dismissed or attacked. And that's why.
Yeah, and there was no attacking at all.
And I think a great way of looking at this was something you mentioned to me when we've talked about how sometimes, you have a situation where one person is a yes and one person's a no, and there's no gray area. And when you have no gray area, it's like there's no compromise. There's no room for compromise. And that room for compromise is where the conversation happens. That middle area, that maybe area is where conversation happens. But if there is no maybe, there's only yes and no, then you can't,
there's no learning.
There's only conversion at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no learning. And that's the thing is the reasoning with each other can strengthen the relationships that we have. And that's her point here, is that this is more about having an opportunity to strengthen our relationships. Like, for example, here's this complete stranger who right away, because of you made a good point, I agree with you. Oh, that's something that we share, that we have in common. Right off the bat, we were both came across as reasonable and well-meaning.
It diffuses the situation because you don't feel as though someone is an aggressor in that scenario. Yeah. Like you go when they come in and go, hey, that's a good point, blah blah blah. You immediately feel more at ease now it's conversation, not argument.
Yeah, and it's about respect, and it's actually collaboration in a way.
Right. Yep.
It's about two people looking into a particular topic from each other's points of views. And her last point is persuasion and sharing power must coexist. True persuasion, ethical persuasion, does not attempt to shame or dominate. It invites conversation, arguing passionately and wholeheartedly for a belief, but stop short of overpowering or manipulating. And that's the last, that term right there, the manipulating, is the hard part for me. I've had a few conversations recently online where I just said, they came at me really hard because I was questioning what they said, and I wasn't questioning the point. I was questioning the manipulation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you've got to, you're bringing up a great topic, but why do you have to lie about it?
That's so passive aggressive, but I understand what you're, I get what you're, that it's a legitimate situation, but it is kind of passive.
There was an actual story that was good.
Yeah.
And somebody had distorted the story, and it was the distortion that was being presented. And I said, why not just use the story?
Right.
Because it's true. And it happens to be really good.
I think in a lot of ways we've hit a point where people can't just do that. Like, here's a great example, okay? There's what is it on WGN? They just launched, like, a new news program, right? And they've been, like, it's, like, 2 hours long, and it's essentially, they're, like, just news, not opinion, right? That's what they're doing, which in my head just rings as fair and balanced all over again, but whatever. So I've watched it a few times just for curiosity's sake, and it's so funny how watching it feels very, here's the news. That's it, right? And I'm going, there's not a lot of personality here. And I'm going, I don't know if this is going to work. Because what people are drawn to is the personalities of a lot of these talking heads in these news networks. Your Fox and CNN and all that. They don't just come out and go, here's the news. They go, here's the news, and we're going to also kind of tilt you, or we're going to put a little, we're going to, massage it however we feel we need to. And this other just came across more as just very bland is what it comes across as, right? So that manipulation is funny, but it's kind of almost, it feels weird to watch a news program where I didn't immediately go, geez, every 2 minutes. Right?
Mm-hmm.
To where they're just like, here's the story. Now, there were a couple of their stories where I'm like, yeah, there's some manipulation going on here. Like, I have full respect for people who do military, police work, firefighters, all this kind of thing. But they showed, there was a news story somewhere in the country, because it's a national news thing. A police officer and his partner, I believe, were undercover. And they were, like, there was a robbery happened. Anyways, this officer was killed, while undercover. But they went on for 5 minutes, basically, about talking about how great of a guy he is, how he was so good about his job, and how he was and I'm going, yeah, you're pulling at people on purpose here. This isn't, the news story is a robbery went bad, a police officer undercover was killed in the line of duty. That's your story. But then they had to go, and now they're basically, from that point on, they showed police officers and all this other, and I'm like, you're just, at this point, now you're going pro-police, 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 like, trying to show how great of a guy this guy was, and it's like, nobody, we don't, like, I don't understand why that needs to be part of the story, right? I feel bad when I see someone was killed. I don't need you to manipulate my emotions from that point. I feel bad that a person was killed. That's being humane. I don't want anyone to die, especially not while they're just doing a job or something. But, so like you're saying, the manipulation in there, it's so hard. Even when you try your best, it's so hard not to, because they're trying to pay tribute to this guy. But in the end, the way it read to me was more that they want to build up so much how great of a guy he was. Like, it's a bigger loss because he was such a great guy. And it's like, it's still a person. I don't, like, scumbags don't deserve to get shot generally either. Like, it's, I value human life. I don't need you to qualify which is worth more than another type of a thing. So when I feel like I'm being manipulated in a conversation, I start tuning out.
Yeah.
So sorry about the long way of getting to my point here, which is the same thing. Is if I'm in a conversation with someone and I feel like they're trying to manipulate the conversation just to change my mind or this or this, then I'm kind of like, look, just present me with facts and your feelings or whatever is fine, but don't try to manipulate me into making a decision. That isn't cool.
Yeah, that's
let me make my own. Yeah.
That's the control part. That's trying to force an agreement
Mm-hmm.
or a resolution. And it really is, that is not the simple art of discussion, which should be just talking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or presenting information and then opening it up for opinions or that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And by getting rid of the converting, getting rid of the dominating, getting rid of the shaming, the name calling thing, which is just killing me.
Me too.
and just getting back down to talking, then we can ask other people to see us as we see them, appreciate values, see their feelings, see who they are, what their fears are, what their worries are, giving credit where it's due. And even with differences in frustration, you can show an element of kindness, which is really, baffling to me, where I've attempted to turn something that was getting frustrating into a little level of kindness or humor, and it falls flat.
Yeah.
And it goes nowhere. And it's just sad to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, the point of this, which is great, I just love, is that if you're looking at the opportunity for growth and education as a focus rather than winning or losing, then maybe some of these conversations I have a lot of friends that say, I don't like talking politics because it's just the conversations are horrible and scary.
I've seen people that are like, I'm not going to post about the race situation going on right now because of similar type of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they are is because of a lot of the things that are pointed out in this article.
Yeah.
And that if we can get past all that, maybe at the very least, and she ends the article this way, is at the very least you had a great conversation.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I've seen more really bad conversations than great conversations. I've had a few really good ones, but unfortunately they're few and far between.
Yeah,
and
because
mainly because somebody just wants to objectify or call somebody names or use black and white thinking. I mean, it's basically the whole distorted thinking list.
It totally is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And like you said, it all comes back to control. That's what it comes down to, is we want to control and change people because we are right. And it's like, how narcissistic are you that you feel you have to keep going around doing this with people?
Or label them. The thing that I get the most is just that I just want to label you so I can fit you in my little box of perception.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I had to call someone out on it last week. I was just like, wow, you really have this need to place me in a box rather than asking me a question about where I stand.
Yeah.
You want to stick me in this little thing because for whatever reason, I don't know. Is it easier for you? Is it just, to see people in this way?
Do you know what it is? Is it's easier to identify your enemies that way. That's what it comes down to. If you consider yourself whatever your political affiliation is, if you're a liberal, you immediately go, you're conservative, you're the enemy. Like that's just what it is now. If I'm a Red Sox fan, you're a Yankee fan, immediate enemy. Like it's just easier to identify I think by nature our brain does that because we go friend or foe, kind of like fight or flight type of situation. We go friend or foe. And I think it's kind of, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Take that.
Yeah. Speaking of foes, I think
I'm going to go kill one.
I think it's kind of become mutated to where, again, we're moving more toward absolutes rather than nuance, and nuance, like you said, I said earlier, it's like nuance is where conversation happens. Nuance is where we can disagree but still be civil. Absolutes are different because absolutes are literally drawing a line in the sand and saying you either join me on this side or you're wrong. And we're moving more that way, and I really wish we weren't. I want more actual conversations because I'll tell you, over the last, 6 or 7, 10 years, whatever, I've noticed that I've had less and less actual conversations with people. You hit that point of dismission so much faster, it seems now, than ever before. Like you're talking anything, and it doesn't even have to be something like politics. You take something like the coronavirus, a pandemic, and people immediately have to find a way to draw a line and say, choose a side. We just can't go, what are we doing here? We should all be on the same team here. We shouldn't be fighting each other over anything during this. there's the right or wrong in this situation should be, are you for the coronavirus or are you against it? There's your right or wrong. If you're against it, then let's all be against it. Like, nobody should be on a side that, allows a virus to grow, kind of a thing, but here we are, for better or worse. And like I said, I think a lot of people have moved that way because politics has really pushed us that way, and it's become such a thing with the growth of the 24-hour news cycle and such that I think a lot of this has really segmented people more and more, and too many people aren't resisting the push. There's a reason United We Stand has always been a thing, because it's the truth. When divided we fall, right? That's the thing is we and that's why I'm always at the end of the show, like, be kind to one another. Like, let's fight against this. Let's try to, like, here's a great example earlier, right? I said how I'm clearly pro-mask. I am in no way, shape, or form, I'm very, open about it. But that woman walking up and doing what she did to that other woman, pulling her mask up, that was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that is not okay. So there's nuance even within my pro-mask agenda. I'm pro-mask, but I'm not going to walk up to somebody and pull their mask up or put a mask on them or yell at them. Like, there's just things that it's like, no, because I still want us to be civil to one another, So I don't know, man. But it all goes back to control. It really does. Our ego and our control or need to control things. And we really need to fight against it. And same with labeling. I know it's, like I said, it's human nature. We label, we like to label, we want to put things in their place. But look how much trouble it's caused us. Like, gender is something we created. Race is something we created. And look how much trouble those things are causing people. Just because of our stupid need to label, So, anyways, I'll step off my soapbox now for the moment. Do better, dang it. Anyway.
No, I get what you're saying. I do. And actually, something I read not too long ago said it was an interesting, it was actually a tweet and really made me stop and kind of think, is I am not responsible for your view of who I am. And I thought about that for a minute, and I'm like, I think you have some responsibility to be the person you want to be, but other people are going to try to put you into their box.
Yep. And
it is not your responsibility to control how they, what box they put you in.
Right.
That's their doing. And so it just kind of made me stop and kind of think about that a little bit. And it just kind of goes back to who you want to be as a person, how you want to present yourself, and really what you value and what you want to take away. Mm-hmm. So if you go into these conversations with the mindset of, I'm going to learn something, I'm going to listen, I'm going to impart information in a respectful manner, and I'm going to act the way I feel comfortable and how I want to act, hopefully others will pick up on that and will, take your lead.
Yeah.
As they say.
Right. No, you're right, because it's, no matter who the person is, they can do everything that they want to do to be the best person they can possibly be, and there's going to be somebody out there that thinks you're an absolute jerk.
Exactly. They're going to put you in whatever box they want to put you in. I mean, you have no control over that.
Yep.
But what you do have control over is how you feel and how you want to behave and how you want to approach things. I use the phrases, I hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying a lot. I don't say I agree with you a lot.
Yeah.
But I do say, I do acknowledge that I get what they're imparting, the information they're imparting to me. I get it, and I make sure that they understand that I get it and I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I say that to my husband a lot. It's like, I hear what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, I don't agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that's
Yeah,
gonna be how it is.
because there is part of that in conversation / arguments to where people will repeat themselves, and you're like, look, I get it, like I understand what you're saying, but like you said, it's like, but I don't agree with it. You can say the things 25 times to me, I'm still not going to agree with you. Like, that's okay. We're allowed as people, we're all allowed to disagree with people. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, it is interesting. That isn't always struck me as interesting how so many of us, everyone's guilty of it. There's not one person I've ever had an argument with that doesn't do it. To where they'll say something, and it's almost like when you tell a joke and nobody laughs, and you're like, oh, maybe I should say it again. And it's like,
absolutely.
no,
I do it all the time.
what you should probably do is just move on, because everyone probably heard it. And
it's just not funny.
It's just not very funny. Yeah.
Well, guys, what do you think? We good?
Yeah,
Yep.
Before we move into the last part, I actually meant to mention this earlier, and I forgot. When we were talking about September being certain months, September is also Suicide Prevention Month. And I'm going to include a link in the show notes, along with this, the ones Heno's mentioned, or the one Heno mentioned, I'm sorry. This one's from NAMI, and it's a page that it's got the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which for anyone who needs it is 1-800-273-8255, or call 911. Next year we'll have a different number that people can use in the time of crisis, which is awesome. And unfortunately, it's still another year away, but things take the time they take, I guess. But on this page, it's got some resources. It has informational sources and awareness things, how to engage, and different stuff. It's just got a good amount of things on it that if you're not really aware of how you can help, or participate or any of that kind of thing, or if you just don't know what to do, if you need help, it's a great resource for that. So I wanted to make sure that was in there and posted on there. And I love that news channel I was talking about, whatever the heck it's called. I don't even remember, which is interesting that I don't remember what it's called. But I will say I thought it was really cool of them. They actually had they did a piece on what is it, Singular, I believe it is, and how they have to put like a new pamphlet in with the medicine that I guess in teenagers it can cause like depression / suicidal thoughts. So the FDA just ruled that they have to put an insert in with the medicine now. And right after they did that story, unfortunately, I guess there's been a bunch of teenagers that have killed themselves, having been on there, that medicine or whatever. But afterwards, they were like, also September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and they ran the phone number and what. I was like, awesome. Like, I'm loving that news channels are finally getting behind putting this stuff out there. So, and they left it up on the screen for, a decent amount of time and stuff. So I was like, good. I'm so glad that finally we're, there's these little wins that you're seeing in the community to help fight this horrible thing that too many people aren't talking about. We've talked about it on here various times, just the staggering increase in suicides over the last 10 years. It's beyond ridiculous, and it needs to be attacked. If anything, like if heart disease rose 20 or 25% over 10 years, people would be freaking out. But,
Absolutely.
We've got people taking their own lives, at a staggering rate. So, once again, please talk to people that especially if it's someone that has depression or maybe has had ideations in the past, or just maybe if they're, look for the, do yourself a favor, go online, look at these resources, look at the signs to look for. especially if you're a parent, but anybody, because again, my parents had no idea what was going on with me when I was, having ideations when I was like 13 or whatever, because nobody was talking about that stuff then. So please educate yourself, and share the info with others and whatnot. So, all right, I'm out. I've stepped off of my first soapbox onto the second one. I've now stepped off of that one. So.
All right, everybody.
It's kind of like the podium at the Olympics. They have first, second, and third. I just stepped from first to second, and yeah.
Well, folks, if you'd like to continue the conversation with us, and I know you do, we covered a lot of ground tonight. So please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. How? Well, I'm glad you asked. You can reach us at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com is our email address. You can also reach me direct on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. And if you would like to hear more from me, you can also hear me on Shake the Sheets. It's a pop culture talk podcast that I do with my co-host Nate. And Henno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. Find me on Facebook Messenger, Henno Heiter. And we haven't done anything really. I haven't released anything new yet for Moving the Needle. I'm supposed to do that this week. It was funny when we podcasted last night. It was like, hey, when's that coming out? I'm like, good question.
That's what you pull the line that, I've been saying, that with stuff like that, it's like things take the time they take.
It's true. That's when I refer back to any podcast with Rick Rubin. He's all about things take.
Yep.
Things are done when they're done.
They're done when they're done. Yep. So
actually,
beautiful. It's funny. Beautiful. Yeah. Oh man.
Beautiful.
I'll tell you.
So beautiful.
Once if you do anything in any sort of a creative fashion, that is a tough lesson to learn. But also very freeing once you finally do get it in your head that things do take the time they take. That sometimes you have to put a drawing or a song away for 6 months, a year, and then come back to it, and then you have that fresh, like you're reinvigorated to work on it. So it's it's tough because everything else you do in life, like when you're at work, you do a job until it's done. You don't generally do a job and go, this would be better if we could put this away for 6 months and then maybe come back to it usually. Like that's not going to fly most. So it's kind of counterintuitive to what we're trained in most other fashion. You're working on it and you're like, you know what, maybe I'll come back in a few months and see how they are. So, yeah. If you want to reach me, you can find me on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcast can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, and we talk about pop culture, things that happen to us in life, and just whatever weird news things pop up, or we just make up stuff on the fly a lot of times too. So, you can find this show on Twitter also at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. We are part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast if you'd like to join us over there. I think that was we would appreciate it if you rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. And also, please share the show with your friends. We've talked about a ton of different topics over these 271 episodes. So, there's probably something that'll interest somebody in there. And we would appreciate it, of course. And I think that's all the links and everything. So, as usual, I'd ask you to reach out to your friends, make sure they're doing okay. Also reach out to people if you're not doing okay. I don't think I say that enough on here is, if you're not doing okay, please make sure you reach out and talk to somebody. It doesn't even have to be like a doctor, just a friend, or call one of the hotlines where you can remain anonymous if you need to, or there's the text one. There's different groups you can join out there. Like, we've talked before, a lot of groups are doing things online right now because of COVID. So, you don't even have to leave your house for a lot of it now. So it's, if you're like me and you're not a real big leave the house person, you do have some options. Plus, telemedicine has become more of a thing if you have the insurance. And if you do need help paying for mental health care, again, NAMI.org is a good resource to kind of get you going there. Or talk to your Department of Health and Human Services. They usually have, there's usually some sort of like a social worker or something you can talk to that might be able to help you out. So there's tons of resources out there, all sorts of people who've devoted their lives, whether they're paid or volunteers, to help. So please just, I know the first step's the hardest, but please take that first step. It is so worth it. And, we don't, like I was just, soapboxing about a few minutes ago, we don't want to lose anybody else. So please reach out for some help. Excuse me. And then, of course, I'll step onto my third podium of the evening. And, please, seriously, just please try to be nice to one another. Even if you see somebody or do something that like you don't agree with, you can still be civil to one another sometimes. I watched a woman with a Black Lives Matter mask hold the door for a man wearing a Trump mask the other day. So, I mean, there's still hope for humanity.
Yeah. We can all work together to make the world better.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of things. Like even like Heno said, within his recovery community, him just being at those meetings, you never know what insight he might share with somebody that might, make a massive difference in their life. So you just never know when just like the littlest things in life can make a big difference. So just please be kind whenever you can.
Absolutely. And with that, everybody, go out there and have the best week you possibly can have. And remember, spread the love, not the COVID. Be safe.